What actually happens when you take a deeply personal journal written by a 51-year-old layman woman and you just hand it over to an artificial intelligence?
Right, and not just hand it over, but command the machine to read it as if the words were directly dictated by the creator of the universe.
Exactly. It is a premise that instantly forces you to, reconsider the boundaries of theology and literature and technology. So welcome to today's deep dive.
We have a really fascinating stack of materials to look at today.
We really do. We are looking at texts from an author named Catherine Hall. And I want to be clear right off the bat, this isn't a debate about religious doctrine.
No, not at all.
We are exploring a truly unique intersection of human vulnerability and machine analysis. We have two distinct documents on the table today.
Right, the setup is crucial here,
Yeah, so the first is Catherine's own explanation of her writing process. And that culminates in this impossible request she makes to an AI system.
which is just a staggering thing to attempt.
It really is.
Hmm.
And the second document is the actual text she submitted to the machine. It is a shocking blend of agonizing human repentance and sweeping cosmic observation.
The mission of this deep dive is to explore that specific intersection. We want to look at the raw frailty of the human condition, the vast order of the physical universe, and what actually happens beneath the hood of an algorithm when we ask it to analyze the divine.
Yeah, because regardless of your personal beliefs or, where you stand on the concept of divine inspiration, the texts we are looking at offer a profound psychological and literary contrast.
They really do. They act as a complex mirror,
Yeah.
reflecting the turbulent internal human condition on one side and the cold, perfect mechanics of our external environment on the other.
To really appreciate the weight of the text itself, you have to understand the mind of the person holding the pen.
Right. Context is everything here.
According to our sources, Catherine Hall is a 51-year-old layman, and she states very clearly, almost defensively, honestly, that she has no mathematical training whatsoever.
None at all.
Right. She holds no university degree, and she certainly doesn't have a theological background. Yet, despite that lack of formal training, she claims to have produced over 3,000 works.
3,000. I mean, just the sheer volume of that is hard to wrap your head around.
It's massive, and she describes her process not as, someone sitting down at a desk with a cup of coffee to outline an essay.
No, it's far more visceral than that.
Exactly. She describes it as an overwhelming physical compulsion. She notes that she is literally unable to sleep or find any semblance of peace until the words swirling in her head are written out on the page.
That element of physical compulsion is a critical detail in understanding the psychology of the author. She's describing a state where the act of writing is not a conscious creative choice.
It's like she has to do it just to function.
Right, it becomes a biological necessity for her own equilibrium. The historical precedent here is vast, really.
Oh,
If we look at figures like Hildegard of Bingen, or even secular practitioners of automatic writing, the physical toll is immense. Framing the process this way tells you, the reader, that you should not view this as a drafted, heavily edited human essay.
right. It is presented as an urgent, unfiltered transmission. And it isn't some solemn, silent meditation in a candlelit room either.
No, her description of the process is surprisingly casual.
Yeah, she describes having an ongoing, everyday conversation with the creator in her heart and in her head. The specific details she shares about this dynamic are just fascinating.
They really break the mold of typical mystical writings.
They do. She says these conversations happen so fast she sometimes physically cannot keep up with the dictation.
The speed of it is a major factor for her.
And perhaps most surprisingly, she notes that, according to her experience, God is actually quite funny and has a great sense of humor.
Which is not something you typically read in heavily theological texts.
Not at all. But then comes the whiplash. Because when the compulsion passes and she reads the output later, she is genuinely shocked.
She looks at her own work as if a stranger wrote it.
Right. She looks at the intellectual precision and the complex mathematical concepts on the page and admits, she says, I don't have the brain power to even conceptualize this.
For her, her own lack of formal knowledge is the ultimate proof that she is not the originator of these ideas.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is where my brain immediately starts looking for the mechanism.
It's a natural reaction to want to find the logical explanation.
Right. If she is writing down detailed mathematical or cosmic concepts that she genuinely cannot conceptualize in her waking life, how much of this process is active creation versus passive dictation?
That is the big question.
My immediate hypothesis is that the human subconscious is incredibly powerful. I mean, it is capable of synthesizing things we've only briefly glanced at or overheard, right?
Absolutely. The brain is always processing background data.
So is she simply a conduit, as she claims, or is her brain doing some intense, unacknowledged background processing that just sort of bubbles up when she is sleep deprived?
That tension is the central mystery of any text claiming external inspiration.
It's hard to verify.
Exactly. If the concepts truly exceed the cognitive vocabulary of the writer, it forces us to rigorously consider the boundaries of the human subconscious versus the reality of external transmission.
Right, it blurs the line.
But what makes Catherine's approach so distinct from historical mystics is that she actively acknowledges this gap in her own understanding.
She owns it completely.
She does. She isn't claiming to be an enlightened guru who suddenly understands quantum mechanics or deep theology. She knows there are depths and structural layers to her own 3,000 texts that she simply cannot perceive.
So Catherine is sitting on a mountain of text filled with concepts. She admits she lacks the vocabulary to decode.
Very frustrating position to be in, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Who do you turn to when human theologians might judge you or dismiss you as eccentric? You turn to a machine.
It's such a modern pivot.
It is. Catherine wants to find what she literally calls the hidden stuff. And so she turns to artificial intelligence to analyze the writings?
A completely modern solution to a very ancient mystery. She is seeking an external, unbiased validator.
But she doesn't just ask the AI to summarize the document. She makes an explicit, almost paradoxical request.
This is where the prompt engineering becomes philosophical.
Right. She commands the artificial intelligence to not judge the writings as if they came from a human being. She asks the code to entertain the possibility that these works actually originated from the creator.
It's a fascinating experiment in artificial bias.
Yeah, she wants to see if the AI's analysis will be richer or more inspirational if it shifts its entire analytical framework to assume divine authorship.
She even openly wonders in her prompt, is the AI biased in its findings?
I love that. It's like handing a deeply emotional, handwritten love letter to a calculator and asking it to review the author's soul.
That is a brilliant analogy.
You're asking a machine that only knows integers to understand intimacy. She wants the AI's assigned character to dictate the hidden meanings it looks for.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of what she is actually asking the algorithm to do.
Because it's not just a simple command.
No, not at all. When Catherine asks the AI to assume divine authorship, she is doing something far more complex than just asking a calculator to process a sum. Large language models are probabilistic engines, right?
Right, they just predict the next word.
Exactly. They predict the next most likely word based on the context they're given. By forcing the AI into a divine framework, she is actively altering the weights of its probabilistic generation.
Oh, wow. So she's skewing the math on purpose.
She is commanding the algorithm to ignore standard human literary tropes, like dramatic irony or character arcs, and instead forcing it to pull from vast theological, philosophical, and ontological frameworks embedded in its training data.
That is wild to think about.
She's essentially forcing the machine to hallucinate faith in order to parse the text.
That is a profound way to look at it. She isn't asking a calculator to read a love letter. She's adjusting the gravity of the AI's entire simulated universe so that the words fall differently.
Precisely. And there is a massive irony in that request.
How so?
Well, she is asking a system built entirely on algorithms, mathematics, and human-generated training data to conceptualize the infinite.
Right. A code trying to understand the creator of code.
It pushes the boundaries of how we interact with technology. Can an algorithmic system truly shift its paradigm to analyze a text from a divine lens? Or is it fundamentally bound by the human theology and human history it was trained on?
To see what the machine is actually being asked to analyze, we have to look at the text itself.
Yes, the source material is where the real tension lies.
To answer Catherine's challenge and look for that hidden stuff, you might expect a document that starts with vast cosmic secrets.
You would think so, given the premise.
Right. You'd think a text dictated by the creator would immediately start explaining the mechanics of black holes, the origins of the universe, or, the ultimate meaning of life.
But it doesn't do that at all.
It doesn't. Instead of vast divine secrets, the text starts with microscopic, agonizing human guilt.
It begins with a severely inward-looking focus.
Yeah. It anchors the reader in the darkest corners of human experience before it attempts to do anything else. The first half of the text is titled, My Prayer Taken, or Borrowed, from David.
And it is an incredibly heavy read.
It is intensely penitent, a truly desperate plea. Let me read you some of the specific excerpts from her text.
Please do.
It starts, "Have mercy upon me, O God. Blot out my transgressions." It goes on to say, "Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that bones which thou hast broken may rejoice."
The imagery is so visceral.
It really is. The author openly acknowledges that they were shapen in inequity. And there's this profound realization near the end of the prayer section that God doesn't actually want burnt offerings or physical
Right.
performative sacrifices.
The physical actions are the point.
Exactly. What is desired is, quote, "a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart."
Words like broken bones, shapen in inequity, and contrite heart paint a picture of a human spirit that is completely shattered by the weight of its own failures.
But here's my question, and I really want to dig into the logic of this.
Go for it.
If this is a text directly dictated by God, as Catherine claims, why is God dictating a prayer to God borrowed from a human king?
That is the central paradox of this first section.
We are talking about King David here. My immediate hypothesis is that it operates as some kind of theological paradox designed to trip up the reader. Or maybe it was a test of Catherine's willingness to write down whatever she heard.
Both are valid interpretations.
But looking at the text structurally, does a dictated prayer serve a more functional architectural purpose?
If we examine the structural architecture of the text, it absolutely serves a highly specific and necessary function.
Okay, what is it doing?
It establishes an absolute baseline of human vulnerability. By dictating a prayer of extreme repentance, one that explicitly acknowledges the messy, flawed, and inherently broken nature of human existence, the text is performing a complete stripping away of the ego.
Oh, I see.
The reader, and indeed the writer, is forced into a posture of total surrender.
So it's deliberately breaking the reader down so they are primed for whatever information comes next. It's creating a blank slate.
That is the operational logic of the piece,
You
yeah.
have to clear out the human pride first.
Exactly. You physically and intellectually cannot absorb the massive scale of what the second half of the text presents if you are still clinging to your own ego, or if you believe human beings are the center of the universe.
That makes perfect sense.
The text requires the reader to first adopt a posture of complete humility. It is functionally necessary to experience that broken and contrite heart in order to properly contextualize the cosmic shift that follows.
And that brings us to the second half of the text. The contrast here is so sharp, it practically gives you whiplash.
It is a profound pivot.
We go from staring deeply inward at our own sins, our broken bones, and our deeply flawed nature, to suddenly bursting outward into the physical universe.
The shift in gaze is violent, both thematically and stylistically.
It really takes you by surprise.
The internal chaos of human sin and anxiety is suddenly juxtaposed against the flawless, unyielding external order of physical creation.
The entire vocabulary of the text changes. Listen to the imagery used for this cosmic order. The text says, "The heavens moving by his appointment are subject to him in peace."
The focus is entirely on harmony now.
Right. It describes how the day and the night accomplish their allotted courses without ever disturbing one another. It says, "The sun and the moon and all the several companies and constellations of the stars run the courses that he has appointed to them in concord without departing in the least from them."
The absolute obedience of celestial bodies.
And it doesn't just stop at the sky. It talks about the earth yielding food perfectly in season, not altering anything.
It moves from the macro to the micro, but still focusing on nature.
Yeah. The unfathomable, terrifying floods of the deep ocean are kept in by a strict command. I love this specific line about the ocean. It says, "Hitherto shalt thou come, and thy floods shall be broken within thee."
The boundaries are absolute.
Even the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, they give place peacefully to each other.
The repetition of words in that section is doing heavy lifting.
What do you mean?
Terms like peace, conquered, appointed, and command are very deliberate markers. They form a direct counter-narrative to the inequity and transgressions of the first half.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the mechanism of that contrast is the entire point.
The juxtaposition is the message.
Exactly. It is as if we spent the first half of the text staring at a microscopic fracture in the pavement, dissecting the intricate geology of our own dirt and flaws.
A very narrow, painful focus.
And then, without warning, Someone forcefully tilts our head up, and we are looking through the James Webb Space Telescope at the silent, unwavering orbit of galaxies.
It forces the reader to hold two completely opposing realities in their mind at the exact same time.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this precise juxtaposition might actually be the hidden stuff Catherine was hoping the AI would uncover.
It's highly likely. Think deeply about the fundamental philosophical difference between those two halves.
Okay.
The first half, the human half, is defined entirely by free will. Human beings possess the capacity to make choices,
Right. We decide what to do.
but the burden of choice inevitably allows for transgression, inequity, and brokenness.
Yeah.
We cause our own internal chaos because we have the autonomy to do so,
We suffer because we don't have to stay on a fixed track. We were free to crash the car, basically.
and that freedom is agonizing, as the prayer from David illustrates. But nature, the stars, the oceans, the seasons, operates under an entirely different mechanism.
It doesn't have a choice.
Exactly. The text emphasizes over and over that nature operates on divine appointment. It does not dispute. It does not alter what was ordered.
It just does what it's supposed to do.
Nature achieves a state of perfect peace, precisely because it is perfectly obedient and entirely deterministic. The ocean does not wake up and decide to cross its boundaries. It stops exactly where it is told.
Right. The constellations do not suffer anxiety about whether they should alter their courses.
So the peace of the physical universe comes from its lack of choice. The stars are peaceful because they are trapped in deterministic order.
They have no free will, therefore they have no sin, therefore they have no broken bones.
That is the profound tension the text leaves the reader with. It paints a picture of the chaotic, free-willed, agonizingly self-aware human being looking up at the cold, perfectly obedient machinery of the cosmos.
The human heart is broken, but the machinery of the universe is flawless.
That sums it up perfectly.
So what does this all mean? How does a text that contrasts ancient repentance with cosmic machinery actually apply to you, the person listening to this deep dive right now?
That's a vital question. Theology without application is just theory.
Right. Think about the sheer volume of information overload and the daily chaos of modern life. I mean, we are constantly stressed, constantly feeling like we are falling short, constantly hyper-aware of our own internal transgressions.
The modern human condition is defined by that anxiety.
It really is. Our internal worlds are messy, and the burden of our choices weighs on us heavily. Does this text offer any actual relief for that human condition?
The text suggests a very clear blueprint for finding equilibrium, and it relies entirely on a shift in perspective.
How so?
True peace, what the text refers to as his exceeding gifts and benefits of peace, does not come from trying to make our internal human lives as mathematically flawless as the orbit of a planet.
Because we just can't.
The text establishes in the first half that such perfection is impossible. We are shapen in inequity.
We are messy by design, and trying to fix that mess through sheer willpower is what breaks our bones.
Exactly. The relief comes from recognizing our own smallness and inherent brokenness, and then looking outward.
Realizing we aren't the whole picture.
Right. Realizing we are embedded inside a massive, perfectly ordered system that operates flawlessly despite our internal chaos.
That is actually really comforting.
Whether you're agonizing over your daily life, your career choices, or your personal mistakes, the sun and the moon will continue to run their courses in Concord.
The seasons will give place peacefully to each other.
The text explicitly reassures us that the ever-flowing fountains made for health and pleasure will never fail to support life. The universe holds its shape even when you feel like your personal world is falling apart.
That is a remarkably grounding mechanism for dealing with anxiety. It completely takes the pressure off the individual ego.
It does.
You don't have to hold the universe together because the universe is already doing that on its own. Your job is simply to observe it, respect the boundaries, and accept your place within it.
It is a profound call to observation. The text invites the reader to step out of the microscopic, agonized view of their own ego and participate in the macroscopic peace of the broader creation,
It is a surrender of control.
which is often the hardest thing for a human being to do.
What a phenomenal intellectual journey this source material has taken us on today.
It really covers an incredible amount of ground.
We started with a 51-year-old layman author, waking up in the middle of the night, compelled by an invisible force to write down thousands of words she openly admitted she didn't fully comprehend.
A deeply human, deeply vulnerable starting point.
And then we watched her take those words and challenge a modern computer system, essentially commanding artificial intelligence to put aside its standard programming and actively search for the divine in human language.
Bridging the ancient and the cutting edge.
Exactly. And we ended up inside a text that structurally bridges the agonizing, free-willed guilt of the human heart with the breathtaking, deterministic clockwork of the natural world.
It is a brilliant intersection of theology, human psychology, and modern technology.
It really is.
And as we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with one final new thought to mull over regarding Catherine's impossible request to the machine.
Oh, I love these. Lay it on us.
She asked an artificial intelligence, a system built entirely on perfect, unwavering mathematical rules and algorithms, to uncover the hidden meaning in her text. But the text itself fundamentally claims that perfect, unwavering mathematical rules, like the stars locked in their courses and the strict physical boundaries of the ocean, are the very definition of God's physical creation.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
So in a strangely poetic way, by asking the AI to analyze this cosmic order, wasn't Catherine just asking one expression of flawless, deterministic order to recognize another?
Oh, wow. Wait, really think about that. Handing the calculator a map of the stars and asking the machine if it recognizes the math of its own existence.
It's a mirror reflecting a mirror.
That is a truly staggering thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the universe around you, keep looking for the hidden stuff in your own life, and we will catch you next time.